At 2 years of marriage, Paloma Stone, Alexander Vargas's first girlfriend, returned to the United States after her divorce. That night, my husband, who had never spent a night away, didn't come home. In the past, my mother-in-law, Eleanor, had offered me $5 million to leave. I refused. Now I'd changed my mind. This time, I would be the one to ask for $10 million and grant him the divorce. After all, the daughter-in-law that old woman had always desired was now a divorced, free woman, so she'd surely be delighted that I was clearing the way for her. At 6 in the morning, I knocked on my mother-in-law's door. 10 minutes later, the Vargas family was turned upside down. 2 hours later, Alexander Vargas received the divorce agreement with my signature. That same evening, while I was dancing close to an attractive young man at an exclusive downtown club, Alexander Vargas's men shut the entire venue down. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. Elizabeth, what the hell is this madness? Instead of preparing breakfast, my mother-in-law shrieked, glaring at me from her doorway, her permed, messy hair disheveled. And what is with that short skirt? Are you trying to dishonor the Vargas name? She pointed at my miniskirt, trembling with rage. Alexander liked pure women like a lily with black hair, a white blouse, and a long skirt. Her mother, like a mantra, always said, "If you've become a Vargas daughter-in-law, you must maintain decency and not show your legs and arms. It's a disgrace to the family." For 2 years of marriage, I, Elizabeth Foster, had almost forgotten that I had such white and beautiful legs. Before they spoiled, I had to show them off to the world so as not to waste them. Seeing that I didn't respond, she thought I had cowered again. She started yelling, pointing her finger at me. "Go up and change right now. Get down to the kitchen and make breakfast. Today I want a proper stack of pancakes." I slapped her finger away. "Mrs. Vargas, let's make a deal. What did you just call me?" She looked at me with a strange expression. "Elizabeth, have you lost your mind?" Soon after, I was sitting on the sofa and Mrs. Vargas was across from me, her hair still somewhat messy and her face looked pale and haggard. That woman who always maintained an elegant and impeccable appearance had lost her temper for the third time in a day. "Are you saying you want $10 million in exchange for divorcing Alexander?" "Yes." My sister-in-law, Caroline Vargas, looked at me with disdain. "Elizabeth, do you really think you can divorce my brother when you love him so madly?" I ignored her and spoke directly to Mrs. Vargas. "Exactly. 2 years ago, you offered me $5 million to leave Alexander. Back then, I refused. I've reconsidered now. However, Alexander's value has doubled since he married me, so it's natural that my value should also double. It's not an excessive request, is it?" "You are absolutely crazy. Where is Alexander? Get Alexander down here." I crossed my arms, leaning back on the sofa with a slight smile. "You don't need to call him. He didn't come home last night. If I'm not mistaken, since Ms. Paloma Stone returned yesterday, they must have spent the night together." Mrs. Vargas's face visibly changed. Caroline, on the other hand, exclaimed joyfully, "Oh, Paloma is back. No wonder my brother seemed so happy yesterday." Mrs. Vargas glared at her, and Caroline immediately fell silent. Although it may not seem like it, a scandal of infidelity wouldn't look good for the family. You've always liked her, haven't you? Now you have the opportunity for her to become your true daughter-in-law. $10 million. It's not excessive, is it? I gently tapped the table and slid the divorce agreement I had prepared towards her. "If you agree, I won't touch a penny of the marital assets." Mrs. Vargas immediately took the documents. Indeed, it was clearly stipulated that Elizabeth Foster would leave with nothing but the clothes on her back, claiming no compensatory allowance. Still, she looked at me suspiciously. "Elizabeth, what are you plotting? It's not like you to give up so easily." I shook my head and sighed. How could I explain it to her? Imagine someone used your toothbrush to clean the toilet. Would you want to use it again? My analogy successfully disgusted her. She looked at me with repugnance. "Of course, with your humble background, even the way you talk is vulgar. No wonder Alexander hasn't managed to love you in 2 years. How dare you compare yourself to Paloma?" "That's why I'm giving you a chance. Think about it carefully." "Mom, what else is there to think about?" "It's a golden opportunity. Accept quickly," Caroline insisted. She was very good friends with Paloma and had seen me as an intruder from the beginning. But it didn't matter. I tolerated her before because she was my sister-in-law, but now that we would be strangers, I didn't have to put up with her anymore. 10 minutes later, I received the money. I went up and came back down with the suitcase I had already prepared. Downstairs, almost the entire Vargas family was sitting in the living room, even my father-in-law, Mr. Richard, a man who was always strict and silent. The truth is, he had never treated me badly, never made things difficult for me, and had cared about my family. Therefore, before leaving, I approached him and gave him a sincere hug. Mr. Richard, I suppose this is the last time I'll call you that. Please take good care of your health, bundle up in the winter for your legs, and ask the staff to prepare you some hearty chicken soup more often. I saw the gray hairs peppering his hair. He sighed slightly and motioned for me to come closer. In front of everyone, he handed me a card. There are $10 million here, too. It's not much, but take it. Inside, I screamed with joy. I had lost a husband and love, but I had $20 million. It would take a good while just to count the zeros. My father would take 20 years of hard work to earn that money. I didn't refuse it and accepted it with gratitude. Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. So tacky, Caroline muttered. At that moment, my mood had improved so much that it wasn't worth arguing with her. I safely put away the card, said goodbye to my father-in-law, and left the house dragging my suitcase. 2 hours later, the divorce papers with my signature arrived at Alexander Vargas's office, delivered by his assistant. Mr. Vargas, this is the divorce agreement the missus sent. She said to call her when you've signed it. Alexander was so busy that he didn't even look up. Leave it there, I'm busy. Sir, I think you should take a look at it, the assistant added softly. Alexander frowned slightly, but upon seeing the words divorce agreement in large letters on the white paper, the hand holding the pen stopped. He took the thin sheets and flipped through the pages, his gaze finally settling on the signature, Elizabeth Foster. However, just a few seconds later, Alexander handed the documents back to the assistant. Call that woman and tell her I'll be home at 8 tonight. But you also have Miss Paloma Stone's welcome party tonight. Alexander's gaze flashed coldly. Get out of here. The assistant didn't dare to delay, and hastily replied, unfortunately for him, I had blocked Alexander and his entire circle. If the family's German Shepherd had an Instagram account, I would have blocked it too. Sir, I think the missus has blocked my number. The assistant's voice was trembling. Alexander's face darkened even more. He picked up his mobile and dialed Elizabeth's name himself. Unfortunately, he didn't know that he was the first on the blocked list. He put down the phone, took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, and lit one. Get out of here. After smoking the entire cigarette, Alexander tried to calm down and refocus on work, but then he received a call from Caroline. Brother, I have bombshell news. You've finally gotten rid of that leech Elizabeth. Now you can make your love with Paloma come true. You won't have to avoid coming home not to see her anymore. Aren't you happy? Surprise. Caroline, speak clearly. What happened? What has Elizabeth done now? Alexander jumped up, nervously loosening his tie. Just for not coming home one night, Elizabeth had caused all this mess. Hadn't she thought about the consequences if he signed those papers? Brother, Elizabeth asked Mom for $10 million in exchange for divorcing you. She's already left, but she only took her things. She hasn't touched anything from the Vargas family. I guess she has at least some conscience. Brother, I have to tell Paloma this good news. While Caroline was excitedly chattering, the phone cut off. Alexander grabbed his jacket and headed straight out. Where's Elizabeth? He asked his assistant. I'm sorry, sir, no one knows. The missus has blocked all our numbers. Alexander felt the anger rise to his head, but he was a man with great self-control. He quickly regained his composure. She said to call her when I signed, didn't she? The assistant, observing his expression, replied cautiously, The missus said that if you sign, you can meet her Monday at 9 in the morning at the county clerk's office and that you shouldn't dare to be late. Alexander stood there, his face growing gloomier. After a while, he took off his glasses and handed them to his assistant. Find out the missus's whereabouts. Inform me as soon as you know something. Yes, sir. Prepare the meeting. After saying this, Alexander turned around and entered his office. Today's project was crucial and would determine the direction of the Vargas Group for the next 5 years. He had worked day and night, even staying up all last night at the office to finish the proposal. Although Elizabeth was causing a scandal, he couldn't afford to play along with her childish antics. For Alexander, work always came first. I didn't care what was happening with the Vargas family. I also wasn't interested in what Alexander thought. At that moment, I was in the apartment my father had bought me before I got married, hugging a teddy bear and crying bitterly. Elizabeth, stop crying now, my best friend Sarah said, passing me a tissue, fed up with the situation. I took the tissue, wiped my tears, and hugged the bear again to continue crying. I've gotten divorced, a divorcee at 25. My life is a tragedy. If I have to remarry in the future and can't find a man richer than Alexander, all the high society ladies in New York will laugh at me. Tonight, we're drowning our sorrows. A friend's sister just opened a club, and they say all the eligible bachelors in New York gather there. I looked up at Sarah with reddened eyes. Are they really handsome? Handsomer than Alexander, girl. Even if they were uglier, they'd at least be younger, have more energy, and know how to comfort you better. Haven't you heard the saying that a college guy is as firmer than a diamond? Sarah, wanting to smack me, lifted me from the floor. Are you going to put on a sexy, pretty dress right now and come with me to de-stress with the young stud or not? I hesitated for a moment and nodded. It had been 2 years and 1 month since I'd worn a sexy dress. Before marrying Alexander, I also walked around daily in shorts and blouses. The first time I met Alexander was on a blind date my father forced me to accept. I was barely 20 and he was nearing 30, which greatly annoyed me. And as expected, in the middle of summer, he showed up for the date in a suit and tie, as if he had just left an international negotiation. I, on the other hand, had pink-dyed hair, a strapless blouse, and shorts. My father almost fainted when he saw my hair. He tried to stammer some excuses to Alexander, but the words wouldn't come out. Alexander, unperturbed, politely stood up and pulled out my chair. Since I had no intention of getting married, I behaved as I pleased. I concentrated on eating and drinking without showing the slightest decorum. My father shot me warning glances, but I pretended not to see them. At the end of the meal, out of courtesy, Alexander walked me home. He was a reserved man, and I was at the peak of my partying age, so I thought things wouldn't go further. However, a few days later, he asked me out again. My father smiled from ear to ear. It seems you made a very good impression on him. This wedding is very likely to happen, he said. I yelled furiously, he likes me, but I'm not interested in him. Old creep. My father silenced me with a single sentence. You don't like him? My rival, old Mr. Davis, is moving heaven and earth, even hiring matchmakers to marry his daughter to him. Hearing that, I was fired up. Monica Davis wants him, so I have to snatch him away from her. I started dating Alexander. At first, it was just to teach Monica a lesson, but after a few months, I fell into the trap of love. I fell in love with Alexander. Madly, ardently, I threw myself into the flames. Love made me lose myself. With his calm, he controlled everything and even turned me into the ideal daughter my father had always dreamed of. Black hair, long dresses, just as he liked. I was delighted too. Until one day on his computer, I discovered a photo of him with Paloma Stone from their college years. Paloma, true to her name, wore a white dress and had black hair overflowing with purity. There was another guy in the photo, but she was between the two. However, to me, it was as if no one else was there. I was absorbed in the timid smile Paloma gave Alexander. It turned out that Alexander didn't like Elizabeth with long hair and a white dress. In his heart, as in so many other men's, there was a boring and ordinary first love, but at that moment, I loved him so much that I didn't dare to ask him. I was afraid that by doing so, the happiness I held in my hands would burst like a soap bubble. Besides, before Alexander and I got married, Paloma was already married, which I always considered a relief. But now, Paloma had returned, divorced. Thinking about how Alexander had taken care of her the night before, that they had surely been together all night, I felt the tears well up again. Sarah quickly dragged me to the dressing room, rummaged through my closet, and pulled out a tight black dress, especially sexy, placing it in my hands. She also secretly pulled out a new set of lingerie. Put this on. You've lost weight lately, and you're in great shape. With this, your chest will be lifted, your waist will be tiny, and you'll make even priests turn their heads. I clutched the clothes to me and looked at Sarah with teary eyes. Will it be okay? I'm a divorcee now. Shouldn't I dress more modestly? Sarah glared at me as if she was going to hit me. Elizabeth, you're only 25. 25 is a woman's most splendid age. If you want to dress modestly, we'll talk when you're 52. Okay. Two 25-year-old women, one in black and one in white, in tight, low-cut dresses and dizzyingly high stilettos, elegantly swayed into the club. At first, I felt a little strange. After 2 years of dressing modestly, suddenly being so sexy and conspicuous felt odd, but after one cocktail, I started to change my mind. I had signed the divorce papers, and Alexander would surely have signed them happily, too. Next week, we would go to the county clerk's office, and everything would be over. From then on, we would have nothing to do with each other. The reason he agreed to marry me so suddenly was surely because of the pain that Paloma had gotten married. I bit my lip, forcibly holding back tears. I moved away from the bar and even lowered the neckline of my dress a little more. Stumbling, I took Sarah's hand, and we headed to the dance floor. On the floor, couples of men and women were dancing passionately close. Soon, I relaxed and recovered the sensation of letting go. A handsome guy came up to talk to me. I took a look at him. He wasn't bad. His eyes looked a little like Alexander's, so I reached out and grabbed him by the collar of his shirt. He instantly wrapped his arm around my waist, and we danced close like the other couples. I had never been so close to a stranger, and for a moment, I instinctively wanted to pull his hand away, but suddenly, the music cut out abruptly. All the people in the club turned around, surprised. Suddenly, men in black suits, looking like bodyguards, stormed into the venue. The bartenders and security staff were cornered. The bodyguards surrounded the dance floor. What are they doing? What's going on? Are they looking for someone? My drunkenness instantly wore off. Undoubtedly, they were coming for someone. For me. I already saw Alexander Vargas walking through the crowd. He approached with his long legs, without hesitation. He wasn't wearing glasses, and his expression was extremely cold. My heart skipped a beat. Instinctively, I tried to hide behind people, but Alexander's sharp gaze had already pierced the crowd and fixed on my face. I was so scared that I couldn't even look him straight in the eye. I immediately turned around to flee. Elizabeth, Alexander pronounced my name. I knew him. The angrier he was, the calmer his voice was. At the beginning of our marriage, when he caught me drinking secretly, he called my name with the same calm voice. I remember that night vividly. Afterwards, I couldn't move from bed for 2 days. Thanks to that, I learned a lesson I would remember all my life, and for a while I obediently obeyed his words. Alexander, satisfied, bought me a lot of expensive jewelry to appease me. My feet were glued to the spot. It was then that I realized that the young man from before still had his hand on my waist. In an instant, the hair on my entire body stood up, and I started trembling. Alexander frowned, his face extremely severe. He took a step forward, and the bodyguards following him made way through the crowd. His gaze swept over my face, my white neck, my thin collarbones, and finally stopped at my narrow waist. Oh, to be exact, on the arm of the young man resting there. I immediately had a bad feeling. Just as I was about to open my mouth, Alexander suddenly reached out, grabbed the young man's wrist, and abruptly pushed him aside. Small cries of surprise were heard among the crowd. I tucked my chin in. Like a frightened quail, my gaze wavered. I was afraid that Alexander would get angry. To be exact, I loved him so much that I was extremely concerned about his emotions. If he was in a bad mood, I felt like the whole world was collapsing. But now it was different. We were divorced. Thinking that, I gathered strength from somewhere. I suddenly lifted my head and looked him straight in the eyes. On the dance floor, there was only one spotlight coming from above. My shoulders and white back were completely exposed. Alexander's bodyguards and assistant were discreet and didn't dare to look at me. But that night, many other men had seen me. I had never seen Alexander's face so terrifying. I even had the illusion that his most precious treasure had been snatched away from him. But I, Elizabeth Foster, had never been his treasure. I felt my eyes redden. Suppressing the pain in my heart, I firmly lifted my chin. Mr. Vargas, do you need something from me? Alexander stared at me for a few seconds with an unfathomable gaze. He suddenly took off his jacket, approached, and put it over me. He even buttoned it firmly, completely enveloping me. I struggled to free myself, but with one hand, he kept me firmly held in his arms. Elizabeth, if we have something to talk about, we'll do it at home. I could clearly feel him containing his anger as he spoke to me, but that only made me sadder. He had probably come looking for me because he thought I had embarrassed him. After all, the divorce process hadn't ended yet, so I was still Mrs. Vargas. Mr. Vargas, I'm not going back with you. I firmly refused, trying to wriggle out of his arms. Alexander frowned and lightly squeezed my shoulder over the jacket so I wouldn't take it off. Elizabeth, how long are you going to keep this up? I'm not making a scene. I've already decided, and I've signed the divorce agreement. Mr. Vargas, don't tell me you can't read. A deathly silence reigned around us. Even Alexander's trusted assistants looked at me stunned, incredulous. I pulled his hand away again and forcibly tore the jacket off, throwing it on top of him. So, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Don't meddle in my affairs. My action undoubtedly enraged him to the extreme. His face became increasingly icy, and I trembled with fear inside. I was afraid that by humiliating him, he would lose control and lay a hand on me. During our marriage, he had never said a harsh word to me, but I bit my lip, trying not to give in, although tears fell uncontrollably. It was Sarah's fault for applying so much makeup. I was afraid my makeup would run. If it ran, I would look like a ghost. I no longer had the courage to look Alexander in the eyes. Every time I saw him, I felt desolate. My heart softened, and I couldn't bear the idea of leaving him. He was too handsome, especially when he was angry. He was the man who perfectly matched all my fantasies and tastes. Thinking about it, maybe the reason I sometimes provoked him on purpose was that. Every time, with a cold face, he unbuttoned his shirt, pushed me against the wall with one hand, held my chin, and kissed me passionately, saying, "Elizabeth, you really need me to teach you a lesson." My heart pounded like a teenager's in her first love. During the 2 years of marriage with Alexander, I remained immersed in the fever of love. My obsession with him deepened every day. He was cold and rarely smiled. My father said it was the expression of a mature and serene man, but I knew very well it was because he didn't love me. I truly wonder if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to be quiet to maintain peace, or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. Well, it's not that he completely hated me. When he was home, if I wasn't on my period, he almost always wanted to fulfill his marital duties. But what did that matter? He's a man in his 30s in the prime of his vigor. His wife, me, was simply a legal and convenient tool. I lived in a fantasy, but at the same time, I was painfully aware of reality. I knew I was walking step by step towards the edge of a cliff. The day he no longer needed me, I would surely fall into the abyss. I'm afraid of pain and death, and now that I have $20 million, I have even more reason not to die. That's why I had to leave him. I couldn't continue to be enchanted by him. I swallowed my tears, took a deep breath, and looked away. Mr. Vargas, if you don't have anything else to do here, please leave. This place is not appropriate for someone of your status. It was true. Since the day that I married him, the way I dressed, my hairstyle, my makeup, the way I talked, my laugh, and even the places I could go, everything was strictly limited. If I deviated even slightly, his mother would immediately accuse me of having a humble background, of not being good enough, and of embarrassing the family, the club, a place I hadn't set foot in for 2.5 years. But now that I was no longer his wife, he no longer had the right to control me. Perhaps it was because of my tearful appearance, but Alexander's expression softened a little. "Elizabeth, if you're angry with me, you should at least tell me why." Why, I thought to myself. And you dare to ask why? You keep photos of your first love on your computer. You mobilize the best lawyers of the Vargas Group to help Paloma with her international divorce. And last year on my birthday, you said you had an important meeting abroad that you couldn't miss. And in the end, I saw you in an Instagram photo that Caroline uploaded having tea with Paloma. While I spent my birthday alone and sad, you were next to the woman you love. You turned me into a clone of Paloma to calm your longing. Loving another, you demanded me every night. For 2 years of marriage, you didn't let me get pregnant, with the excuse that I was still young and it wasn't the time to be a mother, that you weren't ready either. In reality, it was because you didn't want ties so you could easily get rid of me later and marry the woman you truly love. As soon as Paloma got divorced and returned, you stopped coming home, and now that I've done what you wanted, you ask me why? Bitterness filled my heart. A knot of resentment rose from my chest to my throat. preventing me from uttering a single word. I could only let the tears fall in silence. Perhaps because I was crying so inconsolably, Alexander's expression softened a little more. Elizabeth, let's go home. He approached again and put his jacket over my shoulders again. I'm not. I pushed him with all my strength. Alexander, don't touch me. You disgust me when you touch me. He said nothing more. He stared at me with a darkened face. His gaze was so dark and terrifying that it made me feel as if I were the traitor in this marriage. Crying, I couldn't keep looking at him. I grabbed Sarah's hand and stumbled out of there. Alexander didn't follow me. As I left, I heard his phone ring. His hello was extremely tender, but to me it sounded terribly jarring. It was surely Paloma. Now they could have their date without interruptions. That night, I slept at Sarah's house. After showering, I threw myself onto the bed, turned off my mobile, hugged a pillow, cried until I ran out of tears, and slept like a log. Sarah understood me. She knew that at that moment, I didn't want anyone to bother me. Apart from bringing me food, she didn't ask me anything. Monday morning, I woke up early, showered, put on my creams, and dressed in a red strappy dress. Sarah offered to take me to the county clerk's office, but I refused. This was the final point in my relationship with Alexander. Even if it was just to receive the divorce papers, I wanted to end it with my own hands. On the outside, I seemed sure of myself. Radiant makeup gave me a vital look like an innocent young woman, but no one knew how broken I was inside. Before leaving, I turned on my mobile. Among countless messages and missed calls, there was only one unread WhatsApp message from Alexander. It was the one he had sent me the night before, and it only said, Elizabeth, I'll wait for you Monday at 9 at the county clerk's office. A single sentence almost broke me down. My hands trembled holding the mobile, but I held back tears. I didn't want to have to take off my makeup and start over. I had to get divorced looking my best. My lifelong arch enemy, Monica Davis, was surely waiting to see me humiliated, and that Caroline would also be waiting with sharp claws to enjoy the spectacle. Even if I became a divorcee, I had to be the most beautiful divorcee in all of New York. The truth is, my relationship with Caroline hadn't always been so bad. After marrying Alexander, sometimes we would go shopping together. I bought her some clothes and jewelry. Once she saw some jade earrings that Alexander had given me and begged me to give them to her with all sorts of flattery. My heart softened, and although it hurt, I gave them to her. However, when Alexander saw her with the earrings, he said only one thing. Give those earrings back to your sister-in-law. Your skin isn't as white as hers. Jade doesn't suit you. That single sentence officially broke our relationship. It's easy to become mortal enemies between women. All it takes is for someone to say, you're not as good as her at this. Even the most intimate friends can hate each other to death behind the other's back. For 2 years, Caroline had provoked me many times, but I always endured it. But from now on, if she tried to provoke me again, I would teach her a lesson. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and drove to the county clerk's office. I arrived at 8:40. Alexander was a methodical and principled man. If he said 9, he wouldn't deviate even by a minute. And so it was. Exactly at 9, his Bentley stopped in front of the building. He got out of the car and walked directly towards mine. I also put on my sunglasses, opened the door, and got out. Under the sun, black hair, red lips, white skin, red dress. I burned like a flame. I got out of the car and, without looking at him once, walked straight in. Alexander followed me into the lobby. I realized we were the only ones coming to get divorced that day. Alexander, had he done his thing again and cleared the place on purpose? I remembered what Sarah had hinted at that morning. Her sister's club had been temporarily closed for disturbing public order, a total injustice. But if Alexander Vargas's pressure was behind everything, no one would dare to resist, and they would have no choice but to close. Sarah whispered to me that Alexander's behavior seemed like that of a jealous husband angry because of his wife. Maybe he wasn't completely indifferent to me. I laughed to myself. He and the Vargas family were just desperate to save appearances. Have you signed? I asked with my chin up. Alexander seemed a little pale. Why do you suddenly want a divorce? Instead of answering, he asked me a question. It's not suddenly. I've been thinking about it for a long time. Now I could face him calmly. Elizabeth, is there someone else? I was stunned. What nerve! The one who had been flirting with his old girlfriend and had even spent the night away was him, and now he was accusing me of being the traitor. Alexander, don't slander me. He looked at me indifferently. If there isn't someone else, why do you want a divorce? Do you really want me to bring up all your filth in this public place? I yelled, kicking the floor in frustration. What filth have I done? He raised an eyebrow, still in his calm tone, with a nerve that reached his core. I felt such hatred that I wanted to bite him to death. It's because of Paloma. As if a sensitive spot had been touched, I instantly fell silent. I tightly pressed my lips together and looked at him with reddened eyes. Yes, it's because of Paloma. What does that have to do with you? Because she argued with her husband, got divorced, and came back. You have to do the same, Elizabeth. I can tolerate my wife being capricious and sometimes getting into trouble outside. But everything has a limit. He rubbed his forehead with his hand, as if he was tired. Stop this act and come home with me right now. I felt as if my heart was indifferently thrown by him and coldly trampled. He still thinks I'm making a scene, that I'm looking for a fight for no reason. How could I make him understand? I wanted to tell him, Alexander, Elizabeth doesn't want to love you anymore. She doesn't want to be your wife. She doesn't want to continue being a person who is neither loved nor cared about. But at that moment, just seeing his slightly tired face, my heart still ached. The shirt he was wearing was chosen by me, the tie was bought by me, and even the socks and underwear he was wearing were washed by me with my own hands. I, who had never washed a sock for my own father, had loved him so much. If right now he would call me sweetheart just once, if he would hug me just once, my heart would surely soften, and I would give in. But he no longer intended to comfort me because Paloma had returned. A man is only tender and patient with the woman he loves. Poor Elizabeth, your husband doesn't love you. The relationship between him and Paloma oppressed me until I was suffocating. I took a deep breath, and to protect the last shred of my pride, I lifted my chin so as not to surrender. Alexander, how many times do I have to tell you for you to understand? I want a divorce. There's no room for negotiation. Elizabeth, think carefully. Divorce is not a game. I've thought about it very carefully from the beginning. From the moment I proposed the divorce, I haven't doubted it once. He looked at me deeply. A moment later, he let out a short laugh, as if laughing at himself. I didn't understand why he was laughing, nor did I want to understand, because immediately afterwards he said, fine. The divorce process was very fast. Since I didn't claim property division, everything was extremely simple. When the official stamped the blue marriage certificate, Alexander looked at me one last time. My mind was blank, and I said coldly, please hurry, I have things to do. He didn't say anything more, and we quickly obtained the divorce certificates. I took my part, put on my sunglasses, and walked out the door. Alexander seemed to follow me. Perhaps it was my imagination. There was only one exit, so he also had to go that way. I got in my car and drove away. I didn't look at him even once. At a traffic light while waiting, that was when I finally came to. I looked at the blue certificate in my hand and broke down. I grabbed the steering wheel and cried inconsolably. The car behind, blocked by mine, started honking, but I didn't care. Only when a traffic officer knocked on my window and asked me what was wrong did I manage to compose myself and leave there. I returned to the apartment my father had bought me before I got married. I showered, changed, and sat in a trance, hugging my teddy bear. But not even 10 minutes had passed when my mobile started ringing like crazy. I had no intention of answering it or looking at it, but the caller didn't seem to intend to stop, calling every few seconds. With an unbearable headache, I picked up the mobile to turn it off and saw the name. Monica Davis. Instantly, all my combat cells woke up. I picked up the mobile like an angry little wildcat. My eyes shone with suspicion and ferocity. Monica Davis wanted to see Elizabeth Foster humiliated, not in her dreams. I pressed the call button. My whole body was on guard, but the first sentence she screamed left me frozen. Elizabeth, are you crazy? How dare you divorce Alexander from Mark King? I was petrified. Mark King, when did I divorce from Mark King? I hadn't been with him for ages. He was my first love, yes, but we were kids and we didn't know what love was. Now I barely remember his face. Elizabeth, have you been shot in the head? As soon as Mark King announces that he has broken up with his girlfriend and is returning to the United States to start a business, You go and pull the stunt of divorcing Alexander." Monica was screaming like a maniac on the other end of the phone. Why was she so excited about my divorce? If I got divorced, it was a great opportunity for her. She didn't like Alexander that much. "Elizabeth, who do you think you are? I was dying to marry him, and you marry him when you want and leave him when you feel like it. Apart from having slightly whiter skin and being a little prettier, what do you have that I don't? Why? When Alexander was heartbroken, he chose you and not me." Monica was crying while insulting me, and I, holding the phone, felt even more like crying. It turns out that everyone knew he had married suddenly out of spite, and I was the only one who didn't know, said I married him like a fool, excited, and the night before the wedding I couldn't sleep with excitement. Now that I think about it, all of New York must have seen me as stupid. I hung up. At this point, I couldn't even shed a tear. I stared at the teddy bear in front of me. He had given it to me on Children's Day the year we started dating. After much insistence, although he thought it was silly, he bought it himself. I cherished it very much and slept hugging it every night. But I don't need you anymore, and I don't need a teddy bear like you either. Get lost with him. I grabbed the bear by the ear, jumped up, opened the door to throw it, but upon opening it, I was met with a familiar, kind, and smiling face. It was Mark King. He smiled from ear to ear and embraced me with open arms. "Elizabeth, I'm back." Just at that moment, behind him, the elevator door opened with a dink. Alexander Vargas's figure gradually appeared in my field of vision. The teddy bear I was holding in my hand fell to the floor with a thud. "Elizabeth, what's wrong?" Mark asked sweetly. My whole body had stiffened like a stone. I couldn't say anything, nor did I have the strength to push him away. I could only stare at Alexander, who stood still. His expression was icy. Mark finally noticed something was wrong, let go of me, and turned around. His gaze, previously warm, lost its smile upon meeting Alexander's. Alexander's gaze was like a thin layer of frost, capable of freezing anyone just by touching them. I trembled. I stumbled back a step and tried to close the door to hide, but Mark grabbed my hand. I instinctively turned to look at Alexander. His face was terrifyingly dark, his lips pressed into a straight line. I could imagine the force with which he was clenching his teeth. "Elizabeth," Alexander said, but he didn't continue. As if I had received an electric shock, I immediately let go of Mark's hand. "It's not what you think. I didn't know he was outside. I just opened the door and he hugged me." I tried to explain, stammering, but the more I rushed, the worse the words came out. "Mr. Vargas, I don't know what to say." Why had these two men appeared at the same time? One, my recently divorced ex-husband, the other, my first childhood love. Ironically, even Monica thought I had divorced for Mark. And the most ironic thing of all was that Alexander had caught me hugging my old love right after we divorced. I was exhausted from everything. I felt like my whole body was going to fall apart. Not knowing what to do, I yelled, "I don't care. Think what you want." Having said that, I turned around to go inside, but suddenly everything went black and the world began to spin. In that instant, hundreds of romance novels I had read in my adolescence flashed through my mind. I cleverly let myself fall towards the teddy bear. Just in case no one caught me, at least it would hurt less. "Elizabeth." I closed my eyes. I heard Mark call my name with concern, but the person who picked me up in their arms had a familiar and comforting scent, a mix of soft tobacco and citrus. Those arms were firm and strong and held me just as I was about to fall. It was Alexander. I was instantly relieved and kept my eyes closed until we were in the car. When I heard Alexander yell at the driver to go straight to the hospital, I opened my eyes. I gently pulled his sleeve. He lowered his head to look at me, and I moved away from his arms. I was faking. "I'm fine. No need to go to the hospital." "Elizabeth." His face darkened. I avoided his gaze and murmured, "The thing before was a misunderstanding. I didn't know he was at the door. As soon as I opened it, he hugged me, and before I could push him away, you arrived. Are you explaining it to me? Of course I won't let myself be unjustly accused of betrayal." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Besides, I broke up with him a long time ago, and we haven't had contact since then. The divorce has nothing to do with him. You're already defending him. What nonsense. I'm just telling the truth. Elizabeth, you better not try to deceive me." Alexander's voice was cold as ice. If you're fine, get out of the car. I felt as if someone had stabbed me hard in the heart. I bit my lip and glanced at his truly beautiful profile. His sharp jaw, every line exuded masculinity. I loved his Adam's apple, especially when we were intimate. If I gave him a light kiss on the neck and nibbled his chin, he became even more intense. Only now, thinking that Paloma had probably done it too, disgusted me. I opened the car door and got out. I didn't say anything or look back. That's why I didn't see that Alexander from the other side of the car kept looking at my back. His gaze didn't leave until I completely disappeared from his sight. Tell me whether you have parents, grandparents, or older family members who deserve more respect than they currently receive from their families. Alternatively, tell me if you yourself are going through a situation in which you're not appreciated as much as you truly deserve. My mood was down for a week. During that time, Mark tried to contact me in every possible way, but I rejected all of them. I didn't leave the house until Sarah called me to go shopping and have tea. We shopped like crazy, bags, dresses. There's definitely nothing that cheers up a woman more than shopping. I ordered a large taro smoothie, and just as I was about to put in the straw, a slender shadow appeared in front of me. I looked up and saw Paloma. She was looking at me with a slightly guilty expression. Elizabeth. Her voice was light as the wind. I examined her. Black hair, long gibbage dress, light makeup. She wasn't a dazzling beauty, but she was pure and sweet. The type of woman that men like a lot. But we weren't friends. Why was she calling me by my name so naturally? What do you want? Can we talk for a moment? No, Elizabeth, I know you've had a very hard time because of me. Her voice was trembling. She had barely said 4 words and she was already about to cry. No, no, no. If she cries, Alexander will come and strangle me. I quickly put down the smoothie and changed my tone. Ms. Stone, what do you have to say to me? That corner looks quieter. Let's go there. Paloma, with reddened eyes like a bunny, nodded docilely. Yes, all right. Sarah and I looked at each other. We read a word in each other's eyes. Wow, no wonder Alexander took such good care of her. With this fragile lotus flower style. If I were a man, my heart would soften too. I felt bitter. There was a time when I also tried to act docile to win Alexander's heart. Thinking about it, I was a fool. Look at Paloma, so naturally sweet. No wonder after 2 years of giving him my body countless times, he didn't love me. I followed her. Her way of walking in heels was elegant like a lotus. I, in my shorts and t-shirt and my hair in a bun, looked like an adolescent who hadn't gone through puberty yet. My shoulders dropped. But in front of the favorite, no matter how much I dressed up, Alexander wouldn't turn around, so it was better to be myself. It's easier to breathe. Elizabeth, I know you and Alexander divorced because of me. As soon as we sat down, Paloma went straight to the point. My goodness, this was exactly the beginning of the 300 romance novels I had read. I smiled from ear to ear and looked at her. Yes, that's right, it's because of you. She paused for a moment, her eyes reddened, and she gently took my hand. Elizabeth, don't misunderstand me. Alexander and I are just former college classmates. He helped me for old time's sake. Besides, if there was anything between us, it was a long time ago. You don't have to worry. The fact that you suddenly divorced weighs heavily on my heart. If I've caused any disagreement between you, I really couldn't forgive myself. If you are so conscious, why did you get so close to a married man? If you feel guilty, why did you let him stay at your house? Did you feel comfortable using someone else's husband? She paused again. Elizabeth, it's a misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? What were you covered by the blanket fighting over? I was divorced. I was feeling down. And with jet lag after returning, Alexander was worried, and that's why he stayed. Her eyes filled with tears. Elizabeth, really, there's nothing between Alexander and me. We're clean. If there were those kinds of feelings, I would have married him a long time ago. Elizabeth, Alexander is at a crucial point in his career, and he's very busy. Don't make a scene at times like this. You're already 25. You're not a child. Alexander said you're still immature, but after 2 years of marriage, you should already have some judgment. She was lecturing me as if she were my mother. Not even my own father had talked to me like that. I've heard enough. Do you have anything else to say? If not, I'm leaving. Elizabeth, I'm telling you this with good intentions. I don't want to see you break up. Alexander is an important person in my life. I want him to be happy. We've already signed the divorce papers. If you want to make him happy, take him quickly and marry him. If Ms. Stone marries him, he'll be happy, and his mother-in-law and sister-in-law will be even happier. The whole family happy and united. Congratulations in advance on becoming Mrs. Vargas. I kept smiling as I looked at her, but the hand I hid behind my back was clenched so tightly that my knuckles had turned white. My palm hurt as if it were going to tear. No matter how much it hurt, I shouldn't show her a single tear. That damned Alexander had dared to belittle me in front of his first love. Yes, I am immature, childish, and without judgment. But who married me? Who promised to treat me well, take care of me, and make me happy always? Before the wedding, he himself took me to his late mother's grave, knelt down, and swore he would take care of me like a child. And then he was the one who accused me of being childish and immature. But for 2 years as his wife, I got up early to prepare breakfast. I took care of the house and even cleaned Caroline's room and washed her clothes. I went shopping with his mother, carried her bag, served her water, and played cards with her. I accompanied his father to medical checkups and learned to cook him nutritious broths. When he came home drunk and felt unwell, I prepared him hangover drinks. When he went on business trips for a month, I missed him so much that I cried in the middle of the night. But I didn't dare to call him or video call him so as not to bother him. During 2 years of marriage, the time he spent at home could be counted on the fingers of one hand. My world revolved around him, and gradually it began to revolve around the entire Vargas family. No matter how much they despised me, I gritted my teeth and endured it because I loved him. Like a fool, I put into practice the phrase, love everything that belongs to the loved one. If sometimes I threw a tantrum or was stubborn, it was only to get a little attention from my husband, but he was always cold. He would only kiss me and whisper some sweet words when he felt like it. The rest of the time, always with that stern face, distant like a stranger. And I'm supposed to be more judicious, more mature. For more than 2 years, I haven't been happy for a single moment. And when I finally firmly demand a divorce, his lover comes to laugh at me and ridicule me. What else do I have to bear? If Paloma kept provoking me, I was willing to cause a scene for both of them to see. Even a worm will squirm if you step on it. But she didn't give me a chance. Perhaps my last words had angered her because she turned pale as a ghost. She was so white and cried so pitifully that I was about to ask Sarah for help. Then Paloma reached out to me. I instinctively thought she was going to hit me and pushed her hand away, but she stumbled and fell to the floor weakly like a sack of feathers. Sarah ran over alarmed. As we were about to help her up, she suddenly grabbed her felly and moaned in a weak voice, "Elizabeth, please, call an ambulance. I'm pregnant. I'm still taking progesterone for the pregnancy." Hearing that, Sarah turned to look at me. I was also stunned for a few seconds and then understood something. Alexander and she hadn't just recently reunited. Last year on my birthday, they met abroad. This year, he had also gone on a business trip there. He had invested time, effort, and money in Paloma's international divorce. Then the child she was carrying in her womb must be Alexander's. All the strength, coldness, and resignation I had built up collapsed in that instant. I stood there stunned, my vision blurred. Sarah shook me alarmed. "Elizabeth, don't be scared. If you want to cry, cry. Don't stay like that. You scare me." The tears welled up, but my throat was blocked by an invisible hand. I couldn't cry out loud or speak. That oppressed me, suffocated me. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I didn't want to imagine those scenes. Alexander lying next to Paloma, him kissing her. I didn't want to imagine how much he would tell her he loved her when they were together. They took her to the emergency room, and she entered the examination room. I also felt a heaviness in my lower abdomen, perhaps from having drunk something cold. I went to the bathroom and saw a red blood stain on my underwear. I thought my period had come, and I put on a pad from the spares I carried. When I returned from the bathroom, I saw Alexander rushing out of the elevator and walking towards the examination room. Even in his back, the worry and panic were noticeable. Suddenly, I couldn't stand up and leaned against the wall. Only when he disappeared from my sight did I turn around and leave the hospital like a lost soul. On the way home, my father called me. "Elizabeth, were you getting along? Why do you want to divorce Alexander?" My father's voice was filled with tiredness. In recent years, thanks to Alexander, I have been able to keep some businesses afloat. Now that you've divorced, all the projects have been canceled, and I've lost $20 million. Elizabeth, what am I going to do now? I stood on the sidewalk looking at the scorching sun. I had gained $20 million, and my father had lost $20 million. Without Alexander's support, my father's business was collapsing without remedy. I couldn't bear to see my already old father continue to struggle. So I started sending out resumes. I studied design, but without experience, most rejected me. Fortunately, when one door closes, a window opens. A small advertising agency hired me as an intern. The salary was low and the work was hard. Since I was little, my father had raised me in cotton wool. After my mother died prematurely so I wouldn't suffer, he didn't remarry and raise me alone. He had never let me suffer hardships. That's why I was somewhat fragile, raised like a princess. The hard work cost me a lot, but I firmly endured it. Only the pain in my heart was difficult to swallow, especially when Caroline, using someone else's account, sent me some photos. All were screenshots of Paloma's social media posts. In one, she was tenderly stroking her belly with a serene smile. Underneath it said, "Thank goodness you're okay. How lucky to have you. Thanks to life for giving me this person, this emotion. Stay by my side always." Expressionless, I blocked that account. After that, Paloma was quiet for a while. I immersed myself in extra work. I didn't want to go home and worry my head, but one night while working overtime, I went for water and fainted. They took me to the hospital. In a moment of lucidity, I called Sarah. When the doctor, after examining me, informed me that I was 5 weeks pregnant, I was completely in shock. Sarah, excited, wanted to call Alexander, but I grabbed her hand firmly. If he didn't care about his mother, even less about my child, he doesn't love me. He can't love a child of mine. If I tell him, he'll think I'm imitating Paloma. Yes, he'll think that even in pregnancy, I'm imitating her. Sarah saw my pale face and burst into tears. I wanted to comfort her, but as soon as I opened my mouth, the tears streamed down. I don't want this child. I don't want him to live his whole life without receiving complete love. But I couldn't do it. This child was Alexander's and mine. If it's a girl, Alexander will like her a little bit. If it's a boy, he will grow up to be as tall and handsome as him. I hugged my belly and curled up. I didn't dare to think anymore. I heard the door open. Thinking it was Mark, I said tiredly, "Mr. King, how many times do I have to tell you? I really can't go back with you." But there was no response. I heard the door close very silently. I immediately opened my eyes and turned around. Alexander was approaching. He was still dressed as always, in a black suit, shirt, tie, belt, all chosen by me. He was still wearing glasses. He had probably just left the office. His face showed tiredness. He looked a little thinner, and the dark circles under his eyes were more pronounced. I turned my head to the other side. I knew he had stayed up all night again, that his life was irregular again. "Sarah told me you were sick and in the hospital." He approached and sat on the edge of my bed. With total naturalness, he took my hand. They had just removed the IV, and my hand where the needle had been was cold. He took it and frowned. "Why are your hands so cold?" I closed my eyes and tried to pull my hand away, but he gently wrapped his around it. "Elizabeth," he said my name. I felt a knot in my throat. Although I had my eyes closed, the tears fell silently. "The company has been very busy lately. I didn't say anything, but he continued, but I couldn't concentrate. Elizabeth, if I haven't come to look for you these days, it's because I've been carefully thinking about why you wanted a divorce." I still didn't want to talk, but the tears wouldn't stop falling. At first, I thought it was because of Mark. That's why you were so determined to break up. And at that moment, I was so angry and I was so stupid that I accepted. His voice was deep, tinged with regret. I couldn't help it. I opened my eyes and looked at him. "Alexander, you don't know. Elizabeth, I was wrong. I didn't understand anything." He squeezed my hand. His eyes were full of apology and regret. I vehemently shook my head. "You don't know. You will never understand why I had to insist on the divorce. I am like this, stubborn with a pride that reaches the sky. I don't tolerate a speck of dust in my eyes. I prefer to suffer alone rather than give in. Because of work. I've neglected you these 2 years. I've missed many things." I kept shaking my head. "It's not because of work. I'm no longer an immature child. I know how important work is to a man. I've sent Caroline to study abroad. I only give her $500 a month for her expenses. She'll have to earn the rest herself. I was surprised. Alexander only had one sister, and their relationship was very close. He had always pampered her. $500 was enough for a normal student, but for her, who was used to spending, it wouldn't even be enough for a dress. If you hadn't asked for a divorce, I would probably still be fooled by her. His gaze was cold, but when looking at me, it was full of regret. The truth is, I had never blamed him for work. Caroline was a very good actress. Every time he was home, she pretended to be the good sister. I didn't want him to worry about the trivialities of the house, so I never complained. Anyway, those childish things didn't make me lose weight. I could endure them. My firm decision to divorce was what burst the abscess. Caroline, too triumphant, revealed her true face in front of him. When she learns to respect you as her sister-in-law, then we'll talk. You don't have to be so severe, it's just that she doesn't like me as a sister-in-law. It's not a big sin. Whether she likes it or not, she has to accept it. Whether she likes it or not, she has to swallow it. My only wife is you, Elizabeth. But Paloma, you've always liked her. Who says I like her? He frowned and tapped my forehead. Where do you get those strange ideas? But you kept a photo of the two of you on your computer, and you helped her with her divorce. And last year on my birthday, you said you were going on a business trip, and in the end, you were having tea with her. And I didn't even get a happy birthday. My voice cracked. I have a lot of self-esteem and pride, so I had never dared to ask these things. The photo, are you referring to the one in that folder? She was smiling at you so sweetly. Are you referring to this one? He took out his mobile and showed me a photo. It was the same one that was on his computer. I nodded heavily. That very one. Unexpectedly, Alexander burst out laughing. He was a man who almost never laughed. This man was originally strict, cold, almost ruthless. In the 2 years I was his wife, the times he had smiled at me could be counted on the fingers of one hand. I was stunned without realizing it. He took off his glasses, and with a resigned smile, he shook his head. Then he reached out and pushed my bangs away. Silly. His silly was so tender that I almost fainted. Look closely at the photo again, top left. Isn't there someone you know? I quickly wiped my tears, opened my eyes wide, and looked attentively. In the upper left corner, there were two people, a couple. The girl had dark blue dyed hair, a crop top, and a very modern pleated skirt. Beside her, a tall, handsome guy matched her. But what surprised me was, that's me. I opened my eyes wide. Why am I in the photo? Wait a moment. The one next to me looks like Mark. It must be from when I was dating him in college. I looked at Alexander, stunned. What's going on? That day I went to the university for something, and as I passed the sports field, I saw you. I was going to say hello, but then your boyfriend appeared. His voice was calm, but I thought I perceived a slight tone of jealousy. Liar! I didn't know you then. We met on the blind date. Alexander suddenly looked at me intently. Elizabeth, you broke the promise first. You forgot about me first. I was completely perplexed. He, a little angry, returned to his usual coldness. If you don't remember, forget it. Rest. Alexander. I instinctively grabbed his sleeve and about to pout, when I suddenly remembered that we were divorced. I quickly let go of his hand. He looked at his watch. I have to go to a meeting. It's very important. I'll come pick you up in the afternoon so you can be discharged. We'll have another checkup together. Just as he was about to get up, I couldn't help but ask, Alexander, is Paloma really pregnant? He looked at me. Yes, I felt as if someone was strongly squeezing my heart. My small body looked even smaller inside the loose hospital pajamas. Alexander's gaze softened. He approached and gently stroked my cheek. Don't think nonsense and rest. I wanted to ask him if her child was his, but the words wouldn't come out. We took her to the hospital on time, so she's fine. Don't worry too much. And even if something really happened, it has nothing to do with you. He thought I was worried about the safety of Paloma's fetus. I got so angry that I didn't want to talk anymore. I pushed him and said, Go to your meeting quickly. He seemed to be truly busy. He told me to rest and left in a hurry. My mind was a mess of tangled threads, and I couldn't stay at the hospital anymore. Besides, he said he would take me for another checkup in the afternoon, and I didn't want him to know I was pregnant. I changed, secretly discharged myself, and went home. Perhaps because of the pregnancy, my body fell asleep easily. After showering, I lay down and instantly fell asleep. When I woke up, I heard a slight noise outside and opened the door. "Are you awake?" Alexander was standing next to the dining table and turned to look at me. He was still wearing a shirt and black pants, a slim waist, a firm body without slippers. He approached, and seeing my bare feet on the cold floor, he frowned slightly and brought me some slippers. He knelt down and put them on me. Finally, I called him by his name. "Alexander, that day when Paloma returned, were you with her?" He finished putting on my slippers, sat me at the table, and only then replied, "That day I was working at the office all night. You're not lying to me. I've never lied to you, Elizabeth. You're the one who has never wanted to believe me." He reached out and stroked my face. "Last year, on your birthday, when I said I was going on a business trip, the trip was real, but meeting her was a coincidence. That day, she asked me to introduce her to a lawyer, and from then on, we started having contact." I didn't know who to believe, but the words he had just said I wanted to believe. But what about those ambiguous messages on Paloma's social media? I suddenly remembered and went for my mobile. I had saved the screenshots that Caroline had sent me. "Look at this." I showed the photos to Alexander. He remained silent, then took out his own mobile and opened Paloma's social media. He had the settings to show only the last 6 months, but that post wasn't there. It was evident that she had hidden that post from him. Suddenly, I understood. Alexander didn't feel anything for her, but Paloma did. That day, she was simply playing along with me. Thinking about it, it was true that they hadn't been together that day. Alexander's expression hardened. "Men don't like women who use these kinds of tricks." "Maybe she just wanted to remember old times with you," I said. Still uneasy, after all, they were college classmates and were very close. "What old times?" He seemed annoyed. "In college, she was my best friend's girlfriend, the one next to her in the photo. I helped her out of loyalty to old times." He looked at me deeply. "That friend died in an accident. Before he left, he asked me to take care of Paloma. Her American husband was an abuser and cheated on her when she was pregnant. That's why I put the best lawyer in the group to help her with the international divorce." I felt guilty and my voice softened. "I'm sorry, I thought that child was yours. You only have those things in your head." He pinched my cheek angrily. "With one like you, I have enough. Do you think I have time to look at others?" It hurt, and I wanted to protest. Clearly, I was the one who couldn't handle him. He looked at me. His gaze gradually changed. I suddenly got scared and instinctively covered my belly. Since I asked for the divorce, we hadn't been intimate. I knew he wasn't easily satisfied. It seemed that dinner would have to wait. Alexander lifted me in his arms and headed to the bedroom. My heart pounded fiercely. When he laid me on the bed and started unbuttoning his shirt, I quickly wrapped my arms around his waist and hid my face in his chest and whispered, "Alexander, I have a baby in my belly. We can't do that now, can we?" His fingers, which were unbuttoning the buttons, stopped for an instant. I snuggled into his arms, nervous, biting my lip hard. My fingers intertwined behind his waist, also tightened, forming a small knot of tension. "Elizabeth," he put a hand on the back of my neck. "Alexander, I'm not imitating Paloma. Getting pregnant is not something you can imitate. This baby appeared because you harassed me." I sank back into his chest. Dad, his scent, his warmth. I missed him madly. The last night we spent together, we had run out of condoms at home. Alexander had always been prudent and had never neglected those things. But that night, for some reason, he was especially intense and rough. For the first time, he didn't insist on protection, even though I knew I was in my safe days. But there are always exceptions to everything. Now that I think about it, it was probably when the news spread that Mark had broken up with his girlfriend and was preparing to return. His behavior that night was probably out of jealousy. A slight sweetness blossomed in my heart, but I was afraid it was just my imagination. "So you fainted because you were pregnant?" He gently stroked the back of my neck. His long, thin fingers slid through my hair and finally hugged me tightly. "I fainted, they took me to the hospital, and there I found out I was pregnant. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was angry with you. I thought you and Paloma were going to have a child." "Elizabeth," Alexander said with a tone of resignation, but a little angry, "do you have any clear idea of things?" "What?" "I'm your husband. Other women have nothing to do with me. Alexander, then tell me, did you marry me because you liked me? I was completely confused. I felt that if he said a single affectionate word to me, I would be sold and I would happily count the money. Of course not. A single sentence from Alexander made me fall from my beautiful dream to reality. It was because you're silly. He had an expression of total helplessness. Elizabeth, did some high fever affect your brain when you were little? A man like me who runs the entire Vargas group with my own hands. Although I can't completely decide my marriage, I'm in charge. Your family is not poor, but compared to ours, it's nothing. Your father depends on me for his businesses. He doesn't provide me with any help. I quickly grabbed his sleeve. Alexander, don't tell me you've always been secretly in love with me. And that's why you kept that photo that wasn't even a decent portrait of the two of us. Alexander suddenly lowered his head. Just as I finished speaking, he took my face with both hands and kissed me. I tried to say something else, but he kissed me more deeply. Soon I felt dizzy from his kiss, melting in his arms. I couldn't think of anything. Of course, in the end, we didn't do anything. I lay face down on the pillow, flushed, and Alexander went to the bathroom to take a cold shower. Listening to the sound of running water from inside and thinking about the situation before, I buried my face in the pillow and laughed silently. The next morning, Alexander took me to the gynecologist. Upon arriving, we ran into Paloma, who was also coming for a checkup. Her gaze flashed for an instant, but upon seeing me, it darkened, and her face adopted a fragile and pitiful expression. Alexander quickly approached with a kind smile. I didn't like it, but since Alexander had his arm around my waist and didn't let go of it even slightly despite Paloma's presence, I didn't bother to get angry. I'm not a resentful person. In a good way, I'm carefree. In a bad way, silly. So I don't care about injustices. Paloma. As if I didn't exist, she spoke to Alexander. Alexander, there's a college alumni reunion in a few days. Will you come? I haven't seen our friends in years. I don't think I can go. Why, are you very busy with work? Elizabeth is pregnant and I want to spend more time with her. Alexander gave her a very slight smile. If you have nothing else to say, I'm going to take Elizabeth to the consultation. Paloma's face turned white. She clearly didn't expect this situation at all. She stood there stunned for a while without saying anything. Alexander hugged me and walked straight into the consultation. Alexander, Paloma called from behind, you've divorced. Then Elizabeth, she stammered without speaking clearly on purpose. It was her usual tactic. I didn't open my mouth. The matter of Paloma was something Alexander had provoked, so he had to resolve it. What do you mean, or do you think I'm so stupid as to let myself be manipulated by anyone? His words were actually quite harsh. It's not that, Alexander. I was just worried that they would deceive you. Paloma put on a face about to cry again. I slightly shook my head and opened my mouth. My husband does seem like someone to worry about being deceived, doesn't he, Ms. Stone? Elizabeth, what do you mean by that? Alexander and I have known each other for many years. How could I deceive him? I didn't answer. I just smiled and looked at Alexander. Paloma, after speaking, seemed to realize she had messed up and immediately put on a repentant face. To be honest, your relationship with my friend was just a college romance. Before he left, he asked me to take care of you. In these years, I have fulfilled my duty. Ms. Stone, Elizabeth has just found out she is pregnant. She needs tranquility and to avoid shocks. In the future, I would appreciate it if you would avoid saying ambiguous things that could lead to misunderstandings in front of her. Oh, and also that you stop posting things on social media that could lead to misunderstandings. Having said that, Alexander didn't give her time to say anything else and took me to the consultation. When we left the consultation, Paloma was already gone. She won't appear in front of you again. Alexander gently pushed a lock of hair from my face. Elizabeth, in the future, you could tell me things first. But before you were too busy, you always came home very late, and in the morning when I woke up, you had already left. The time I could see you was very little. That's why I didn't know how his family treated me. With his father home, his mother, even if she didn't like it, had to keep up appearances. Alexander looked at me for a long time and suddenly hugged me. I've renovated the ranch house. From today on, we'll live there alone. Alexander, I didn't expect him to say something like that. You are the eldest son. You just sent Caroline to study abroad. They only have you next to your parents. I was wrong before. I brought you home and I didn't protect you. I don't know how much you have suffered. Alexander gently dried the corners of my reddened eyes. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. My tears instantly flowed. Alexander, I don't blame you. I also had many flaws. If I had been more mature and judicious, maybe your mother would have liked me more. That doesn't matter. As long as you like me, it's enough. Alexander gently dried my tears, but I cried even more. Alexander, I'm very childish and immature. I'm not like other wives, kind, mature, who does everything well. You don't have to be like anyone. You just have to be Elizabeth. You talk very well. Who was the one who wouldn't let me dye my hair or wear skirts or shorts? Alexander suddenly laughed, leaned in, and gave me a light kiss on my wet eyes. His high nose gently brushed mine, rubbing affectionately. Silly. What husband wants his wife to dress like that for others to look at? But I was wrong before. From now on, dress however you want. If you like it, I won't interfere. Of course, that he still had other reasons that I didn't know. In college, I always dressed conspicuously, and Mark had a very sophisticated and Western style. The two of us looked very good together. Later, after meeting me on the blind date, Alexander subtly influenced me to change my style. I thought he liked the sweet and feminine style, but in reality, he wanted to erase any trace of me related to Mark. He looked at the small woman in his arms, the girl who, under the torrential rain, cried hugging a plush bunny in front of her mother's grave, the girl who had touched his heart and who he could never forget. Now she was his wife and would soon be the mother of his child. He wanted her to always be pure, always like a child. He would carry the whole world on his shoulders to protect all the pure beauty in her. So you were jealous, right, Alexander? Say it. Were you jealous, right? I grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, shaking him and pouting. You don't want to admit that you fell in love with my beauty, do you? You didn't like others looking at my thin waist and long legs, did you? Didn't you? Do you think you still have a thin waist? He touched my still flat belly, whispering in my ear to tease me. That's because of the baby. You can't make fun of me for being fat because I'm pregnant. I protested loudly, sticking out my belly on purpose. Alexander, even if I gain weight, you have to love me. You have to love me. Be careful, the baby might hear you and laugh at his mommy. Alexander, resigned, took my hand. Aren't you hungry? Didn't you want to eat hot pot? The baby is the size of a pea. What is he going to understand to laugh at? I squeezed his hand tightly, our 10 fingers intertwined. He was originally a cold and strict person. I had never heard him say harsh words. But now, hearing the words that had slipped out, he only frowned without scolding me at all. Suddenly, I realized, before, between us, there were many small details that allowed me to realize that he was always tolerating me. But before, I never paid attention to them. He always silently endured my capricious character, my clumsiness in speaking, and even my messiness and awkwardness. The time he spent at home wasn't much, but every time he came back, no matter how late it was, he would kiss me, even when I was deeply asleep. And every morning when he left, he always gave me a farewell kiss. In the 2.5 years as his wife, he woke up at 6 in the morning every day. But I, his wife, almost never got up with him. I rarely prepared his breakfast or tied his tie. Suddenly, I felt that I really wasn't good enough. I immersed myself in negative emotions, magnifying my complaints and doubts, forgetting his sacrifices and tolerance. It was that insecurity that made me unhappy, and that made him, busy as he was, feel confused by my useless tantrums. Sweetheart, as soon as we got into the car, I couldn't help but hug him. The truth is, I almost never called him sweetheart, only in bed. When we were intimate, he forced me to call him that. I buried my face in his broad back. The sweetness in my heart gradually devoured the resentment. This is my man, my husband, the father of my child. I am very lucky to have married this man. Are you feeling unwell? Alexander turned around worriedly, taking me by the shoulders and asking in a low voice. I shook my head and extended my arms for him to hug me. Before, unsure of his feelings, I pouted at him. Now that I knew he cared about me, I wanted to pout at him all day. Alexander hugged me. Why have you become so clingy? Because I want to be clingy with you. I didn't dare before. You didn't dare? I don't know who has been so clingy since we got married. He gave me a light kiss on my earlobe. Constantly. Every time you said you were tired, that it hurt. And after I took care of you with all my strength, You hugged me crying and saying that I was harassing you. It's just that you really harassed me, taking advantage of the fact that you are tall and strong. It's just that you don't know how to appreciate the luck you have. And if I give it to another, I don't want it. I'm dying of tiredness. Don't even dream of it. This luck is only for me. Alexander kissed me. First, let's eat. After eating at home, we'll settle accounts slowly. He took me to eat hot pot. He didn't like places that smelled of oil, but since I liked it, he accompanied me. When we finished eating, as we were about to leave, we ran into Monica Davis. She had come to eat hot pot with some friends. As soon as she saw Alexander and me holding hands, Monica bit her lip, and her eyes reddened. I had been Alexander's wife for more than 2 years, and she still didn't seem to have gotten used to it. Monica, angry, puffed out her cheeks. She looked like a pufferfish, and the truth is, she was a little cute. Thinking about it, although we hated each other, Monica wasn't one to conspire behind your back. So, in reality, we didn't have a deep grudge. Simply since we were little, I liked to tease her, and today too. As I passed by her, Monica looked at me furiously and asked, "Elizabeth, have you two gotten back together?" I nodded. "Yes, we're back together." Monica was jealous and angry, but she said one thing. "You weren't completely silly. Oh, the last time you called me, you told me that Alexander had married anyone out of spite, remember?" Monica embarrassedly glanced at Alexander and tried to explain something. I continued triumphantly, "I'm sorry, but the person who spited him was probably me too." "What?" Monica clearly didn't believe it. She opened her eyes wide. "Quiet! You're going to scare the baby in my belly." I hugged my belly immediately and snuggled into Alexander's arms. He cooperated and hugged me tightly. "Elizabeth, are you pregnant?" Monica seemed to be in shock. "Didn't Alexander say that he hated you and wouldn't have children with you?" "Who says that?" Before I could answer, Alexander's expression became red. Monica, scared, stammered, "Well, people were rumored. Caroline said it too. I was just repeating what I heard. I didn't invent it. Do you think I would marry a woman I don't love?" Monica quickly shook her head. She was almost crying. I pulled his sleeve. "That's enough. I'm sleepy. Let's go home." Alexander didn't say anything else and carried me in his arms. I turned to look at Monica and said with a smile, "Monica, you're actually very pretty. Surely a man who truly loves you will appear." Monica was used to arguing with me and instinctively wanted to reply, but she seemed to hold back because of Alexander's presence. It seems that happy people become kinder and more generous. Even with Monica, my childhood enemy, I wanted to wish her the best. When I reached 3 months of pregnancy, the doctor said that my condition was very stable and that the fetus was growing well, and subtly hinted that Alexander and I could resume our intimate life. But since my belly had grown a little and my waist was no longer as thin as before, I felt a little embarrassed. That night, after Alexander helped me bathe and we returned to the room, I hid under the covers and didn't show my face until he came out of the shower. He lifted the sheets. His body still exuded the coolness of the shower water. I was so embarrassed that I didn't even look at him. Although we had been married for several years, at that moment it seemed like our first night. Much later, when the sound of rain outside began to be heard, everything ended. I snuggled into his arms, lazy, not wanting to say anything. His breath enveloped me, giving me a feeling of unparalleled security. "Alexander, tell me, our baby, what if we call him Sprout? It's a bit of a strange name. It's cute, like a sprout that grows into a plant as if it were sprouting in my belly. Then we'll have to find him an elegant name later. I'll think about it. I've studied more than you." I yawned in his arms, hugged his waist, and murmured, "So sleepy. When Sprout is born, I'll tell him everything. I'll tell him that his daddy always harassed his mommy." Yes, I think I fell asleep. That's why I didn't hear the words that Alexander whispered in my ear. "Silly, because I love you and I like you. I will always want to harass you like this."